I walked into my father's funeral thinking we were going to be evicted by the end of the month, only to find out that the man who wore shoes with holes in them and skipped meals to stay healthy was actually worth $34 million. For 25 years, I watched my mother cry over utility bills while my father sat in the corner of our cramped, one-bedroom apartment, meticulously stitching his own frayed shirt collars with a needle and thread. He worked as a night janitor at a local high school, coming home smelling of industrial bleach and exhaustion. And yet, sitting in that sterile lawyer's office 3 days after we buried him, I found out he owned half the commercial real estate in the city. He watched us struggle, he watched me work 3 jobs to put myself through a state college. And he watched my sister give up her dream of becoming a violinist because we couldn't afford the insurance on a professional instrument. All while he had a literal fortune sitting in offshore accounts and diversified portfolios. I am currently sitting in a penthouse suite he bought in cash a decade ago, looking down at the streets where we used to scavenge for loose change, and I feel nothing but a cold, paralyzing rage. Was I wrong to feel like he betrayed us? Or would you be just as furious if you found out your poor father had been lying to your face every single day of your life? I need you to be honest with me, because my mother is calling it a blessing. But all I see is 25 years of unnecessary suffering. Let me take you back to the beginning so you can understand the sheer scale of the deception. Growing up, our lives were defined by the word no. Can I have a new backpack? No. Can we go to the movies? No. Can we turn the heat up past 60 degrees in the dead of winter? Absolutely not. My father, Arthur, was a man of few words and even fewer expenses. He was the king of frugality. He drove a rusted-out 1994 sedan that rattled so loudly, you could hear him coming 3 blocks away. He would spend his Saturday mornings driving to 4 different grocery stores just to save 80 cents on a gallon of milk. I remember being 10 years old and wanting a specific brand of cereal, the one with the colorful marshmallows. My father looked at the price tag, looked at me, and spent 10 minutes explaining the economic insignificance of sugary additives before buying the generic brand of oats that tasted like cardboard. At the time, I just thought we were poor. I thought he was doing his best. My mother, Sarah, worked as a seamstress from home. Her fingers always pricked and scarred from hours of laboring over other people's wedding dresses that she knew she could never afford for her own daughter. We lived in a neighborhood where the sirens never stopped, and the windows were reinforced with bars. I remember one winter specifically when the heating unit in our building broke down. It stayed broken for 3 weeks. My mother and I sat in the kitchen with the oven door open, trying to catch whatever heat we could, while my father sat in his armchair with 3 coats on, reading a book by a single candle to save on electricity. When my mother suggested we buy a small space heater, he lectured her for an hour on the fire hazards of cheap electronics and the moral decay of comfort. Looking back, that space heater would have cost $40. He was earning that much in interest every 10 minutes. My sister, Elena, was a prodigy on the violin. Her teacher told us she could go to Juilliard, but when it came time to audition, we didn't have the money for the travel, the application fees, or the high-quality bow she needed. My father sat there, eating his watery soup, and said, "Life is about practicalities, Elena. Music doesn't put bread on the table." She cried for weeks, eventually sold her violin to help pay for my mother's dental surgery, and took a job at a warehouse. I worked as a delivery driver, a waiter, and a tutor all at once during my senior year of college just to avoid taking out more loans. I remember coming home one night, exhausted, my feet bleeding from standing all day, and seeing my father sitting at the kitchen table under a single dim bulb. He was counting pennies, literally counting pennies and rolling them into paper sleeves. He looked up at me and said, "Waste not, want not, Mark. Every cent is a soldier in the army of survival." I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell him that I was tired of just surviving. I wanted to live. But I respected him. I thought he was a man of integrity who was carrying the weight of our poverty on his shoulders. There was a time when my mother's car broke down, and she needed it to deliver the dresses she made. He made her walk 3 miles in the rain with those heavy garment bags rather than spend the money to fix the alternator. He told her it was good exercise for the spirit. Now I realize he probably owned the very repair shop we were too afraid to visit because of the cost. When he got sick, it happened fast. It was lung cancer. We went to the tool shed, moved the rusted lawnmower he refused to replace for 20 years, and found the key. It was a simple brass key with a small tag that had a bank name I didn't recognize. 2 days later, we got a call from a high-end law firm downtown. The kind of place where the lobby has marble floors and the air smells like expensive cologne. We walked in there in our best thrift store clothes, feeling like we didn't belong. The lawyer, a man named Mr. Sterling, looked at us with a strange mix of pity and admiration. He opened a thick leather folder and started reading. He didn't start with the money. He started with the properties. Apartment complexes, strip malls, tech stocks bought in the early 90s, and a massive stake in a logistics company. As he spoke, the numbers started to blur. 5 million, 12 million, 20 million. By the time he reached the final tally of $34 million, my mother had fainted. So that is the reality I am living in right now. My father, the man who let us live in a drafty apartment and made my sister give up her soul's passion for the sake of practicality, died a multi-millionaire. He had the power to change our lives with a single checkbook at any moment for 3 decades, but he chose to watch us struggle. He chose to let my mother wear herself to the bone. Before I reveal the contents of the letter he left behind explaining why he did this, and before I tell you what I did with his legacy, I want you to pause. Go to the comments right now. If you found out your parent had millions but forced you to grow up in poverty just to teach you a lesson, or for some other twisted reason, would you forgive them? Would you take the money, or would you feel like it was tainted? I really need to know if I'm the only one who feels like this is a sick joke. The lawyer handed me a letter after my mother woke up. It was written in my father's cramped, precise handwriting. It said, "To my family, I know you are angry. You see the numbers and you think of the things you didn't have. But I grew up with nothing, and I saw what wealth did to people. It makes them soft. It makes them entitled. I wanted my children to know the value of a dollar earned. I wanted Sarah to know that our love wasn't built on a foundation of gold, but on the strength of our partnership. If I had given you everything, you would have appreciated nothing. Now you are strong. Now you are resilience. This money is your reward for becoming people of character." I read those words and I felt a physical urge to vomit. Character? He thought he was building character while my sister was crying over a sold violin? He thought he was testing my mother's love by letting her develop chronic back pain from an old mattress he refused to replace? The more I read, the more I realized he had been watching us like we were insects in a jar. He detailed moments where he almost broke character and helped us, only to stop himself because he wanted to see if we could overcome the adversity. He mentioned the time my mother needed a root canal, and he made her wait 6 months until he could find a student clinic that did it for free. He wrote, "Seeing Sarah endure that pain with grace showed me she was truly the woman I thought she was." That's not love, that's sociopathic. The climax of this nightmare came when we visited the bank to see the physical assets. There was a safe deposit box. Inside wasn't more money. It was a collection of every single thing we had ever asked for, and were told no. There were brochures for Juilliard from the year Elena was supposed to go. There were photos of the house my mother used to point at in magazines. There were even the marshmallow cereal boxes, expired by 15 years, tucked in the back. He had tracked every single one of our desires and systematically denied them, keeping the records like a trophy case of our deprivation. That was the breaking point. My sister started screaming in the middle of the bank vault. She took those Juilliard brochures and ripped them into 1,000 pieces, throwing them like confetti over the cold metal floor. She looked at me and said, "He didn't love us, Mark. He loved the control. He loved playing God with our lives." And she was right. It wasn't about character. It was about a man who was so terrified of loss and so obsessed with the power of his secret that he forgot how to be a father. He had turned our life into a social experiment without our consent. He had bank accounts that we could have used to save our neighbors, to help our community, to live without the constant crushing weight of survival. Instead, he sat on his mountain of gold while we shivered in the dark. The aftermath has been a chaotic mess of guilt and luxury. My mother, bless her heart, wants to donate half of it to the church and live in a modest house, still trying to honor the frugal man she thought she married. She's in denial. She has to be, because if she admits the truth, She has to admit that the man she loved for 40 years treated her like a lab rat. But Elena and I? We took a different path. I used a significant portion of my share to buy out the high school where he worked as a janitor. Not to help them, but to establish a massive scholarship fund in the name of the children of liars. I wanted his name associated forever with the truth of what he did. I also tracked down every single one of those grocery stores where he used to drag me to save pennies. I bought the land they sat on, and turned them into community centers where kids can get free meals and instruments. Elena bought the finest violin in the world, a Stradivarius, but she says she can't even bring herself to play it. The joy is gone. Every time she touches the strings, she just thinks of the 20 years of silence he forced on her. I've tried to spend the money on things that would have made him furious. I bought the most expensive sugary marshmallow cereal I could find and ate it in the back of a chauffeured limousine. I bought my mother a house with heated floors and a thermostat in every room, though she still tries to keep the heat at 60 degrees out of habit. The psychological damage is deeper than any bank account can fill. I realized that wealth doesn't fix the holes in your soul that were put there by the people who were supposed to protect you. My father died thinking he was a hero, a silent guardian of our future. But in reality, he was just a stranger who lived in our house and watched us bleed while he held the bandages behind his back. He taught us how to survive, sure, but he never taught us how to be happy. He never taught us that we were worth more than the money we could save. I've moved into that penthouse, yes, but I spend my nights staring at the wall, wondering if I'll ever be able to trust a single soul again. When I look at people now, I don't see friends or partners. I see secrets. I see potential lies. I see 34 million reasons why the world is a cold, calculated place. Is it a blessing or a curse to inherit a fortune from a ghost who didn't think you were worthy of a comfortable life while he was alive? I honestly don't know. The money is there, but the family we could have been is dead and buried alongside the man who destroyed us. If this story made you feel something, or if you've ever dealt with a family secret that changed everything, please like this video. It helps us get these stories out there. Make sure to subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the wild things people hide behind closed doors. And please tell me in the comments, do you think my dad was a wise teacher or a financial abuser? I'm reading every single one of your thoughts because I'm still trying to process this whole mess myself. Your support means the world to me as I navigate this new, wealthy, and incredibly lonely life. Thank you for listening to my story, and I'll see you all in the next one.